Welcome to my channel, you guys. I say a wonderful good morning to everyone. I'm going to be talking about valleys today. One thing we can be sure of is that God is always at work. And when we're at a crossroads in life, or when we're forced to face trials or tribulations, and when we are at the point of knowing, not what to do. We don't know what to do. We can always trust that God still, He knows what He's doing. Even when we don't know what's going on, when we don't understand what we're going through, He still knows. He knows exactly what He's doing in each of our lives, and we can count on that. Every time we go through a valley in our lives, these valleys are part of our journey. They're a very normal part of our journey. Valley experiences, in these times we wonder why God allows us to go through them. In Psalms 23, David speaks of a deep and a dark valley where there seems to be not even a ray of light. And you feel like you're not going to make it sometimes, but valleys are not just dead-end streets or dead-end roads. They will end. There is going to be another season. And though these, say, disappointments, frustrations, discouragements, which basically cause a valley, they are the valley, shouldn't be seen as a disaster. And David actually refers to them as a shadow. So the valley is the only route to our own personal promised land. There's no alternative route. So when the Egyptians, let's look at them for a minute, chased the Israelites to the Red Sea, there was no way for them to go around it. So they just had to go through it. But it was God that made a way for them to go through it. And God makes a way for us to cross over too. When we journey through the valley, we keep in mind that God will make a way. His grace, His leading, His mercy, it will never fail us. His way might not always seem as, a way that we would imagine or that we would have even chosen. But we have a habit of trying to tell the Lord exactly how we want Him to help us and ignore the fact that He knows just what to do. At times we question God in the valley, we doubt, we fear, we get discouraged. And you know what? I can say all that because I'm guilty of these things myself. I'm guilty of these feelings myself. I don't know how often that I've cried out to the Lord, "Where are you, God?" Many times I've cried out to Him in the valley. Or how long before will you answer me? But I was overlooking the fact that all I had to do is trust Him and stop holding on to the thought or the fear that God will wait too long to do something. So as David said, the Lord is my shepherd. When it came to his relationship with God, it was a personal matter. The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is your shepherd. It is a very personal matter. When it comes to our relationship with God, we should feel the same way as David did. We know for a fact that He is our shepherd. David knew the duty of a shepherd because he was a shepherd himself. He faced the lion, he faced the bear to protect his father's sheep, and he knew that God was his protector. So he understood what it was, what the shepherd was, what the shepherd's job was. And just like David had placed his life between the lion and the sheep, Jesus has placed His life between Satan and you. And we can just give God all the praise and all the glory for that. We are so protected by the Lord, even through the valley, through the desert places, everywhere we go, everywhere our feet are established to go. As the Bible says, the steps of a good man are established of the Lord. So wherever we go, we have that Christ's protection all around us and about us. David was going through the valley. He was not making the valley his permanent home. And the valley is not our home. Although the valley of the shadow of death, it is a physical location. It is also another name for the road between Jerusalem and Jericho. Remember where the Good Samaritan helped the man along the way. It was a winding road, a very steep road, and shepherds had to take their flocks through it on the way to their fields. People would hide in the caves there to steal the lambs and eat them. So David wrote the 23rd Psalm metaphorically with this in mind. When we speak of the mountains, that is normally considered a place where we would receive revelation and awe. And to have a mountain experience means you're going to receive something. You're going to receive insight. You're going to receive inspiration. But the mountaintop for Christians is where we meet God. It's where we hear a word from God and we can see the promised land. We all love being on the mountaintop. That's my special place. I love it, but I'm not there very often. It's a place where we can feel God's presence, a place where we can clearly hear God's voice, and we're able to follow his leading because it's clear to us. But the valley is quite a bit different. And I would say the average Christian experiences both the mountaintop and the valleys. Life is filled with ups and downs. The truth is, if you're like me, many times you find yourself living or walking through, I won't say living in because we only pass through, but going through a valley type experience. The valley is where life becomes challenging, where many battles are fought there, feelings are hurt there, attitudes are developed there. The valley is a place in life where we struggle every day with fears and hopes, our hopes and painful circumstances. That's where we experience those things. The valley for us is inevitable because we find ourselves there for different sorts of reasons. It may be spiritual warfare or the actions of others or because of our own rebellious actions. Or it could even be due to the hand of God himself that we find ourselves in the valley. So on the mountaintop is where we come to meet God, but in the valley is where God comes to meet us. So as we struggle during our time in the valley, David reassures us that we can make it through. For every mountaintop experience, there's a valley. You're either going into one or coming out of one, or you're in the midst of one. Jesus said, in the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. So we're going to have many trials. We're going to have many sorrows. And there will be people who will misunderstand you, especially in that valley place. They'll criticize you or talk evil about you, slander you, or judge you unfairly in that valley. Valleys are a normal part of life. We don't plan them. We don't even have time for them. You can't schedule them. They just come. They come at the worst possible times, it seems like. And usually they come when we're unprepared and just don't really have time to deal with them. But valleys are like that. They just happen. They can come upon us all of a sudden without warning. It doesn't matter how good you've been. It doesn't matter how careful you've been. Life is such that they will come. Valleys are important. Valleys are impartial. They're not selective. They come to the rich. They come to the poor. They come to men, women. It doesn't matter what color you are. They're going to come to you. No one is exempt. David is telling us something here in Psalms 23 using the word through. We're never going to camp out there in the valley. We're always going to be going through. He's saying that anything you walk through has a beginning and it has an end. He realizes that while we're in the valley, through our faith, God is going to meet us there. You know, sometimes people are in the valley so long they kind of just give up. They kind of stay there. They stop praying. Their faith is challenged. Their hope is gone. They're like the Israelites who asked the question, how can we sing songs of Zion in such a strange land? You know, I think Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, where they went through the fiery furnace they were going through, they did not camp there either. They were just going through that fiery furnace. And on top of that, Jesus was with them in the fire, that is one of the most amazing stories for me, because we can know, just like the 3 Hebrew children, they didn't see Jesus, but others did. He was with them all the time. He never left them there by themselves to go through that fiery furnace by themselves. And he's with us through every fiery trial, every valley. Valleys are part of life. They're a part of our journey. They are actually a part of our journey that no one can go through. And at the end, boast that they made it through without any scars, because there's going to be scars. There's going to be scars. Sometimes we can view the valley as a gift from God, because anything that brings us to Him or even brings us closer to Him or to His ways is an actual gift to us. Valleys, even though they're temporary, they actually do have a purpose. As I turn to 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 7, we read here, it says, wherein you rejoice, though now for a season, if need be, you are in heaviness through manifold temptations at the trial of your faith, being much more precious than gold that perishes, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the coming of Jesus Christ. So when it's necessary that we walk through the valley for a little while, we need to come to the understanding that these valleys are only a time of testing. We're being tested as fire is as fire tests and purifies gold. Your faith is much more precious to God than gold. That's why it's so important for you to maintain your faith like David did while in the valleys. There's a question, a very good question asked in the Word of God. In Luke chapter 18, it says, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? And there are good reasons for God allowing us to go through the valley. God allowed his only begotten Son to go through wilderness and be tempted by the devil. Think about it. Jesus himself was not exempt from suffering, especially the cross, especially on the cross. We go through these trials. That is such a good question in Luke 18. When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? Are we going to walk through and continue walking, knowing and realizing it's only a season? It's only a bump in the road, basically. Some are a little longer than others, but you know what? There's going to be an end to that valley. Not only did Jesus face the cross and the suffering, especially on the cross, but Jesus wasn't exempt from things like loneliness or temptation. He went through temptation. He was not exempt from discouragement or anything else that we ourselves have to face. He experienced loss just like any of us. He was misunderstood just as we are misunderstood many times. And many times it's by people that we love. He was persecuted and he was greatly criticized, and so are we many times. I notice many times in the Bible, like when Jesus was led of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil, different things that Jesus went through, people misunderstanding him, people criticizing him, people persecuting him. We also go through some of what he went through. But he went through it, way far ahead of us. He went through it first of all and can understand the things that we go through and have compassion on us at times that we go through it. Not only that, he can give us wisdom. We have examples of how he went through things, and those examples help us through those difficult times. So because he went through some of the same things or the same things that we go through, that's what actually enables us to be like him. We've been given, as I said, an excellent example of how to get through. And not only how to get through, but how to get through victoriously. This is why David said, "The Lord is my shepherd," meaning I have everything I need, meaning that the Lord is with me through my life and beyond. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. That means he gives me new strength and he guides me in the right direction. So it looks like everything is going good for David, but look, he leads me, he renews my strength, he guides me, but he changes a little bit of the fourth verse because he says, when, not if, but when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not be afraid, for you are with me. So he knew he was going to walk through the valley of the shadow of death. David is saying, no matter where I go, no matter what I have to go through, God is with me. And if God is with me, I have no need to be afraid in the valley. I have no need to be afraid in the desert or any challenging place that I would find myself. And no matter where it may be, he is with me. We have his presence in our pain. We have his love in our loss, his patience despite our complaints. Through hardships, you know what? He may strip us of pride. He may renew our passion for him. He might redefine or refine, I should say, maybe refine our character. And he may purify our motives. We don't know what he's doing in the valley always, but the valleys are to our benefit, though it's not a pleasant place to be, and it's very challenging. Some valleys more so than others, but in the original language of the Bible, it actually says that valley of shadows, meaning it is only a valley of shadows, and the point being, what can a shadow possibly do to us? It's just a shadow. So think about it as a shadow. It's caused by an object blocking the light, and sometimes a shadow can make things look gloomy. A shadow can make things look dark and dreary. But with every shadow, we need to be looking towards the light. Jesus is the light. He's the good shepherd, and the good shepherd does not lead his sheep into the dark valleys and leave them there all alone. He's with you there. He watches over us from outside the valley. He's with us through the valley. And let me say, there's always an end to the valley. The light will shine again. I guarantee you, the light will shine again. Okay, in closing, it's God himself who walks with us through life's trials to deliver us from all evil, to deliver us from all fear. The valleys are where we do our struggling. It is where we have to cry sometimes. The valley is part of our journey in life, but God comforts us there with the assurance that only he can give. Even earthly death will never separate us from dwelling in his holy presence forever in heaven. Galatians 1:4 says, who gave himself for our sins that he might Deliver us from the present evil world, according to the will of God and our Father, truly as it is written, we will fear no evil, for thou art with us, and truly as it is written, we will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So I don't know about you, but in the midst of all my struggles and in the fact that the valley is only temporary, is worth shouting about right there, because it is our reassurance that trouble doesn't last forever. And thankfully that the Lord is with us in the valley, and that we do not walk through those places alone ever. We cannot go by our feelings or our senses, but He is there. And I know I am ever so grateful. The times when I feel like I'm losing faith in the valley, I have to stop and tell myself, I don't walk by my feelings. I walk by faith. And so you know what? In those valleys and in those times where you're not feeling Him, you're not sensing Him, we're going to put one foot in front of the other and walk by faith, just like the Lord has told us. We are people who walk by faith, not by feelings. And saying that, I am going to close and say God bless you guys, and may you have a totally amazingly great week. God bless you, each and every one.